Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we've got a fun loudspeaker review for you. Of course, that means we are talking about XTZ Sound's Spirit 4 Bookshelf Loudspeaker. Let's check it out. So there is no shortage of affordable two-way bookshelf loudspeakers, especially two-way affordable bookshelf loudspeakers that are sold via the internet. However, the XTZ Sound Spirit 4 bookshelf loudspeakers have kind of escaped my radar completely. And that's a real shame because honestly, at $480 a pair, these Spirit 4 bookshelves are remarkable. Suffice to say, there is a lot to like about these Spirit 4 bookshelf loudspeakers, but what's on paper doesn't always translate to what you actually hear in the real world. So let's talk about how the Spirit 4s sound. Well, to be honest with you, they sound freaking great. Likely better than any sub $500 loudspeaker has any right to. And they're built and they're fit and finish and construction, and like I said, their feature set and options, albeit options for a bookshelf loudspeaker, are phenomenal. And as you can see from this video, they are not particularly picky as to placement, meaning you don't have to arrange your life around the Spirit 4s, but rather the Spirit 4s can integrate nicely into a wide variety of living situations, or in my case, decor and cabinetry. But that doesn't begin to describe how they sound. On a whole, the Spirit 4s are largely, if not, neutral loudspeakers. And because they use a 1-inch silk dome tweeter, these are not loudspeakers that become harsh or brittle on the top end, though that silk dome tweeter may not possess all of the sparkle that you might find from an aluminum dome or, say, beryllium or metal sourced tweeter, or some AMT tweeters that are out there. Which suits me fine, because if you're a fan of this channel, you know that I like a good silk dome tweeter, and the reason I like a silk dome tweeter is because not everything that I listen to is audiophile grade. Not every movie I watch is perfectly mastered or in the highest high-resolution formats, and not every song I listen to was created, crafted with discerning ears in mind. And more esoteric materials in the tweeter can mean that the tweeters themselves become brutal and unforgiving towards lesser recordings. Silk dome tweeters don't really suffer from that. And this is why I still kind of prefer loudspeakers with silk dome tweeters. When done right and when given a proper recording, they can still give you all of the pomp and circumstance that a more esoteric tweeter can, but when the recording may be less than stellar, they're not going to box your ears as a result. And this is where the Spirit 4's tweeter shines, in that it is neutral, but also very kind to the widest range of source material. And I love it. It is detailed, it is airy, and it is extended with great dispersion. Like I said, it may just lack that top 1 or 2% of sparkle. In terms of the mid-range, this is about as uncolored of a mid-range as I've heard at or near this price point. The cabinet itself is incredibly inert, so you're not having a lot of coloration from the cabinet itself, but the voicing of this particular loudspeaker is such that the mid-range, the vocal region, if you will, of its performance is what you see is what you get. And that's awesome, because that also means that what the performance that's being put out by the singer-songwriter or the actor themselves is not being colored or changed in any way. So vocals of any ilk come through clean, clear, precise, with great inflection and detail, which is what you want. Obviously, everything colors the sound to a small or certain degree, so you're not always just getting an unfiltered communication between the singer or the vocalist, but you'd like to get as close as possible, and the Spirit 4 does that. In terms of bass, The bass with the Spirit 4 is surprising, and in small to medium-sized rooms, I would even question, would you need a subwoofer to augment the bottom end on these, because it is so impactful. And this is the one area where the Spirit 4 does kind of come off that linear trajectory. There's an ever so slight bump in the 40 to 50 hertz range, which is where, a lot of people refer to bass as being impactful. It's in that frequency band, and there's just a slight bump here. And as a result, it does mean that the Spirit 4s do appear or seem to have more bass, more grippy bass, and more impact in these regions than you would likely believe. But because of that, it also lends a real sense of weight and heft and grounding to all of the other traits that fall in the mid and treble. And it gives for a complete total package. And this is why I say these speakers are very, very close to neutral, but maybe not exactly neutral, because there is just an ever so slight bump in the low mid bass or bass region. I welcome it. I like it. I think it lends itself to a greater sense of grounding and dimension, but I am putting it out there so that you are aware of it. In terms of soundstage, the Spirit 4's dispersion is vast. These loudspeakers can disappear with the absolute best of them. They image like absolute champions. And imaging is a hallmark of a lot of bookshelf loudspeakers, but I do consider the Spirit 4s to be among the better in this class and at this price point, and maybe even several ticks above. Because the dispersion is so good, the soundstage, if set up in a room that has it to give, the soundstage will just defy the boundaries of the loudspeakers themselves. I'm talking in terms of width and depth. These are not loudspeakers that project too much, maybe a couple of inches in front of the front baffle, but for the most part, you can expect the sound to stay in line with the baffles, but extend well beyond the outer edges and just go back past your front wall for days. Center imaging is good. There are some loudspeakers, especially loudspeakers with maybe slightly more esoteric tweeters, that lock in that center space just a little bit better, but we are definitely splitting hairs here, because the center focus and focus within the soundstage on a whole with the Spirit 4s is rather remarkable. So what don't I like about the Spirit 4s? Well, I'm going to get to that, but first we got to pay a few bills here, so we'll see you after the break. Welcome back. So let's talk about what I don't like about the Spirit 4s. Well, straight away, the matte finish in black is prone to showing fingerprints, smudges, and dust. And if your loudspeakers are out in the open on a stand, well, you can expect to have to Swiffer these things off or maybe wipe them down with a microfiber cloth fairly regularly. Because I chose to put mine inside a BDI octave cabinet, I'm not noticing these things as much. Suffice to say, most people might not do that, so just know that if you get the matte black, which is a soft touch matte black finish, I might add, they are going to be prone to showing smudges, fingerprints, dust, oil, things of that nature. Another thing that I want to make you aware of, it's not so much that I didn't like it, it's just something that I think you need to know, is because these loudspeakers are 86 dB sensitive or efficient, they do require a little bit of juice to sound their absolute best, especially if you plan on playing them at louder volumes. I'm not talking that you have to hook these things up to massive amplifiers with Herculean power, but something with a solid 75, maybe 100 watts on tap will do you. And for the purposes of this review, I had them connected to my Marantz NR1509, which is an AV receiver with roughly 50, 60 watts of power on tap in stereo. And they did fine. They sounded great, but they definitely did sound better when I added a secondary amplifier in the form of the XTZ Edge, which made these beauties just sing so beautifully. And if you want to know more about that amplifier, I just finished reviewing that, and I will link to that review in the description below. Lastly, again, and I pointed this out purely because of the materials that the Spirit 4s use, but for those of you that are fanatics about absolute extension in the high frequencies or bass, or are totally obsessed with dynamics being at that nth degree, Well, dynamics are also a product of the amplifier, so you are going to want to make sure that you have the power to wring all of those dynamics out of this loudspeaker. But second, because of the silk dome tweeter and the lack of, say, an aluminum-based bass driver, you may find that the signature, the quality or signature of the Spirit 4's sound to be ever so slightly more rolled off or neutral dry compared to some with an aluminum tweeter, or if you're a fan of like Klipsch with that horn waveguide, you're just not going to quite get that same level of high upper end detail or projection. But again, for me, that's what I like. I like a loudspeaker that sounds more like the Spirit 4 than what I've just described, because I listen to, like I said, a wide range of source material, and I want a speaker that can play nicely with everything versus a specialty scalpel, which I only have to feed it certain genres in order to get the best out of it. But yeah, just those are the things that either I didn't like or that I want you to be aware of should you be considering purchasing these Spirit 4s for yourself. Now, obviously, a loudspeaker that looks like the Spirit 4 is going to be compared to the Buchardt S400s, and for good reason. They look identical. In fact, when I took delivery of the Spirit 4s and took a photo of them and posted it to my Instagram page, a lot of people commented which Buchardt loudspeakers were those. So that comparison is understandable from a physical standpoint because, like I said, they look the same. Cursory, from the outset. But in terms of sound, you could not be asking for two more different sounding loudspeakers. And I'm going on a huge limb here because I did really like the Buchardt loudspeakers. I did, and I would urge people to continue to consider that loudspeaker. All that being said, I think I like the Spirit 4s a little bit better. I actually think that they're a little bit more linear in their overall response and performance, and thus, as a result, have just a more pleasing, approachable, and overall acceptable sound. And the Buchardts were amazing. They're great speakers. But at $480 a pair, I think the Spirit 4s might be a little bit better. And so, yeah, if you were thinking about maybe picking up a pair of Buchardts yourself, the Spirit 4 is definitely a loudspeaker now to consider and look at. Granted, the fit and finish of the Buchardts is, in my opinion, a little bit better, and you do have some better finish options, and the Buchardts themselves do go down a little bit deeper in terms of bass response. But those two caveats aside, if those aren't of paramount importance to you, the Spirit 4s definitely need to be on your short list of loudspeakers to consider. Obviously, other comparisons are going to come from ELAC, Golden Ear, Definitive, Polk Audio, JBL. I don't think I would compare the Spirit 4s to loudspeakers from Klipsch or even say Martin Logan. Martin Logan used the folded motion tweeters, whereas Klipsch used the horn-loaded metal dome or titanium tweeters. Both of those have dramatically different sounds to them, and in my opinion, may or may not be more of an acquired taste. But in terms of soft dome tweeters or even maybe aluminum driver tweeters, yes, the Spirit 4s can be compared to Polk Audio, Definitive Audio, Golden Ear, ELAC for sure, Paradigm, and other speakers in that kind of realm. At around $500 a pair, I do consider the XTZ Spirit 4 bookshelves to be incredible and very difficult to beat, and I think we're going to hang on to them for the long haul because not only do Christy and I really like them, but they really work nicely inside the BDI Octave cabinet, which is another project that we've been working on and we hope to bring you guys very soon. But because the Spirit 4s aren't really finicky in terms of placement, meaning they sound good, obviously, in open air placement and equally good inside a cabinet. Those of you with media rooms, maybe you just bought a house that has built-ins. If you can play with the bass port on the back of the Spirit 4, either by plugging it or not plugging it, depending on your setup, the Spirit 4 is a loudspeaker that you can put in a bookshelf. I know. a bookshelf loudspeaker that you can put in a bookshelf, but it is a loudspeaker that does sound good on a shelf, in a shelf, surrounded by books, in a cabinet, just as well or just as good as it sounds on stands in open air. So that's it. That's my review of XTZ Sound's Spirit 4 bookshelf loudspeaker. What do you guys think? Is XTZ a brand that's been on your radar, or is it a brand you own? Because this is a brand that is newer to me. I've been aware of them, but I have never demoed any of their products until recently. And here we are doing 2 XTZ Sound reviews back to back. And I gotta tell you, they're a brand to watch, and they are a brand that you should definitely check out, especially if you are looking for really, really good, affordable solutions, be it power or loudspeakers, because they appear to be the real deal, guys. And the XTZ Sound Spirit 4 loudspeakers are, in fact, the real deal, and I think are going to serve as my budget reference for the foreseeable future. So that's it, guys. I got to get out of here. That is my review. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this review, please do like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below. And if you didn't like it, go ahead. Do your thing, man. But until next time, remember, the only person that has to like the sound of your system is you. So happy listening, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Be kind, take care, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.